Thanks everybody. This is the first time I'm presenting to a group. We've been kind of in stealth mode. We kind of did a soft pilot, and as I'll show you more. So this is an exciting thing to unveil here. We also got selected as a 5 finalist to the Trail Prize from Cambia Grove. So they wanted a presentation anyway. So this is all coming together nicely. So I need to send them a presentation and see where that goes. So basically, CaringALS is a telehealth marketplace where ALS patients can find the care they need without a lot of hassle, and also get financial assistance, not be money be a barrier to getting that care. That's our goal and focus. And let me tell you a little bit about ALS. I kind of explained what happened to me, but typically what happens is the disease period is about 3 to 5 years, usually about 4 years. And you see here, the person gets diagnosed, and diagnosis could be a drop foot, a slurred speech, a muscle switch, a cramp, tightness in muscle, any of those things, right? Many of us get this once in a while, and we just blow it off, thinking it'll get better. We don't even go to the doctor many a time. So that's how it starts. But ALS is such a deadly diagnosis. Nobody wants to. The net result is between patient's denial and the fact you go to your primary care, the primary care generally doesn't know this is ALS or what is ALS. So they take a long time, roughly 3 to 5 months. Then they send you to a neurologist. The neurologist takes about 10 months. So essentially, an average person gets 17 months before they're diagnosed with ALS. The unfortunate the fact of that is, much like cancer, your total 40% of your disease period is spent untreated, by which point in time, 80% of motor neurons are actually dead by then. Now, we don't know, it's uncurable disease. Like I told you, since the 90s, there's never been a cure. So we don't know what treatments would work. But we do know there's a lot of anecdotal evidence for sure. And there are a couple of FDA approved drugs to help the quality of life and maybe extend the lifespan as well, if treated early. So that typically doesn't happen. So that was problem number one, right? How do you get people into treatment sooner so that most of the motor neurons can be preserved or degrade slowly before they die? But that's we thought we had an opportunity to play with this, but we think as I'll show you, we have an opportunity also to extending that to address some of the issues related to clinical trials themselves. So what does CaringALS do? It's just one-stop shop. You come in there, you find the care providers you need. It's a multidisciplinary care. When you have ALS, you've got your pulmonologist, your neurologist, your functional medicine doctor, there's a physical therapist, et cetera, et cetera. So you come in there, one-stop shop. You book an appointment with them. They will have a price. It's a marketplace, like I said, to attract the providers. If you need financial help, there's financial assistance available, and you'll find a variety of therapy options. You can pick and choose and create your own care team, just like you went to a hospital, except now it's virtual. So you can pick the best neurologist in Texas and the best pulmonologist in North Carolina, right? It doesn't matter where they are. And create your own personalized treatment plans and become eligible for clinical trials. One thing I did not mention previously is if you're untreated for that long, one of the bad things that happen is you've degraded so much that you're not eligible to clinical trials even. The clinical trial folks want people who are much earlier in the disease process generally. So your options start closing in on you as well. And the best part I think I like about our platform is it's one place you find all of these providers, and it's all of the information about them, what they do, what treatments they have, what success they've had is all consolidated into a single format across all providers. So you can educate yourself very quickly and easily, and convene a meeting with any of these providers through telehealth without leaving your home. As you may know, mobility is an issue with a lot of the people with ALS. So what we are doing is essentially putting the patient right in the middle of it. And the patient is not in the middle of it. Patient is essentially cast aside for the advancement of science or for the insurance billing, healthcare practices, or what have you. So we're going to change that. And we've gotten a lot of attention, and I'll talk to you in a minute what we've done. So essentially, the patient comes in, there's a calendar there, and they can find all of these people, as you see, all these different specialties, and you can select, read, book. That's it. There's no, today it takes, even to get to a neurologist appointment, it will take you 3 months. After the primary tells you need to see a neurologist, it'll take you 3 months to get to a neurologist in the first place. So we want to turn this whole thing upside down. So you can, because the calendar is right there for you to book. But another interesting element is you can also book an appointment very similarly with who we call patient navigators. These are people who have deep experience of ALS. Either they were former ALS patients themselves or ALS patients themselves, or caregivers to ALS patients. Maybe somebody in their family members has passed away, but they're still committed. They want to help out and they have deep knowledge about ALS, what happens, etc. Because with ALS, what happens is it's like multiple sclerosis. We know that happens over 20, 30, 40 years. This happens over 2 to 3 years. So patients kind of go from crisis to crisis. There's no time to plan. One day you can't move, another day something else happens. So they need a lot more guidance in a community. So we're bringing a community of patient navigators with their calendars you can book. And usually all of this will be mostly free, right? But we're not dictating it has to be free, but it could be free. And the third constituents we bring is the clinical trial, which is all the researchers at top tier institutions. So we're not talking about, some witch doctor type of cure. These are real clinical institutions who have a problem as well, which we're solving. So we'll give them access to meet the clinical researchers. Now, clinical researchers, you can't book yourself, obviously, with a calendar. You need to be referred through. So we'll get you that process. So if we do this to a patient, we've kind of changed the dynamics and the paradigm and how ALS is cared for. And I believe this is true for pretty much every other rare disease in the country and maybe other diseases as well. So how does it work? So they come to the site, they find a service, they select the service, they need financial assistance. Simply like a checkout screen with e-commerce that we're all used to shopping on Amazon, except instead of paying with your credit card, or maybe the other interesting aspect is in this scenario, a lot of the providers do not accept insurance for other reasons we won't delve into here. So you can essentially crowdfund it. We'll bring sponsors to it. You can bring your friends and family to pitch in. And the beauty of it is every dollar everybody pitches in for you goes directly to pay for that particular treatment that you're booking right now. Unlike a GoFundMe or any other crowdfunding things, because you collect the money, the donor doesn't know what the proceeds or the use of the proceeds are going to be. And then you schedule a visit to with your healthcare provider. So it's as simple as that. For the financing piece of it, essentially, the money can come from 4 different sources. One is I'll start with the obvious one. There are a lot of folks who passed away from ALS and they've donated their money for the benefit of others who come after them. So there are all these memorialized donations. Corporate sponsors, we're beginning to talk to all the corporate companies to fund the care in a very organized manner. Third is the patient's own personal resources, insurance, etc. And the last component is friends and family. So each of these folks can contribute $10 to $50 to $100, whatever they want on each bill basis. So that's the bit of a paradigm shift in how financing happens as well. How we got here. I told you my personal story that I was running a company, another startup. We were building payment solutions for dental, veterinary, auto repair, those type of spaces where you get a surprise bill. Essentially, you get a large bill and you go like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Now what do I do? Usually people are running off and borrowing stuff. So we're building some solutions to make it easier to raise financing for this care. But we went from I got a tooth extraction that I need to pay for to medical bills, essentially. We built Peter passed away in August of 2019, and we had, my company was already generating about $100,000 in revenue, which is a good start, very good start for a software startup company based on licensing fees. We discovered the model because I knew this industry from before. And sometime in 2020, as the COVID crisis hit, a lot of the small businesses also started to slow down a little bit. We decided full on go in and bring a telehealth element and marry it to all the payment solutions we had built and focus on ALS. That's what we're doing. And we've been in that validation phase. We did a soft pilot literally with one provider to see how it works. And we said, okay, there are 5 slots available to this provider who wants to take it. And we've sold out all the 5 slots. And those patients are just loving the provider. I sent one testimonial to Jacqueline recently as well. And our goal is by the next 6 months, 3 to 6 months, we'll start enrolling providers. Most of our providers are referred by other ALS patients. So in November 1st, we'll have about 100 providers on our site. but not everybody will have a calendar booking. We need to integrate with the calendars. So I'm thinking, I'm planning sometime in Q1 of next year, we'll have hundreds of providers, we'll have their calendars, and we'll already have done thousands of bookings, and thousands of donors have paid for those bookings, essentially. And the second element of the phase two we'll have just started is figuring out how to get these folks, along with their data, more easily into clinical trials as well. So that's the future. I don't look beyond this just because I'm from the startup world where everything needs to run in months and weeks, right? You live or die in short periods of time. But it also happens to fit the tempo of the urgency of the need of this specific disease. I don't have the luxury of 9 months or 12 months. So I don't pretty much do any weekends or night outs or any of that stuff. This is it. And what's our vision actually? Our vision is a little bit broader than what I just said. If we win this, that's all we'll focus on right now. If we win the caring component of it, if we provide enough value, then we get the benefit and opportunity to play a bit of a larger role, which is essentially increase the number of clinical trials. Today, there are about 90 clinical trials people can enroll into. We think we can do 300 to 500 clinical trials by removing some bottlenecks. We think we can make that happen. If we don't play, this won't happen. Which means what happens? Then you get earlier diagnosis. That's a target. Delayed progression. We can identify what the rate of progression is. And there are about 42 reversals today, right? Documented reversals. Somebody is diagnosed with ALS and they got better. And there's one person who's already on our team who's one of the 42. So nobody knows why. So we think we want to, at least my personal goal is to cause more reversals and document more reversals on our platform through the use of our system. So what is the big disconnect, right? This is, like I told you, this is a phase two. This is not my focus right now, but I just wanted to highlight the problem. Problem is we work with people at MIT, Google Euphonia, that's a group that's doing research on ALS as well, John Hopkins, et cetera, UT Austin. They complain all the time, don't have enough patients, because they have inclusion-exclusion criteria for all of those things. And patients say, they're desperate, right? So they wake up one day, they've been diagnosed with the ALS thing, they're searching in some small town Kansas. What do? You just send email, and none of those things get returned. So they feel rejection over rejection, essentially. So there's a complete disconnect. Patients can't get in, these guys can't get enough of qualified patients for trial. This is something that we will address, because when we surround the patient with all these different types of care, we get access to all the data with the permission of the patient. Remember, the patient's in the middle. We're not taking any data out. And most patients in ALS don't care, honestly. That's it, take my data, just get me to the cure, right? Data is not the most important thing for them. So we're going to build a very smooth, deep way of getting all the data. Data is dynamic. Every day the patient may be making notes saying, I feel weak today, not weak today. That's a personal note. To a doctor making notes, to diagnostic, maybe you got an MRI done or X-ray done, or you got some blood biomarkers sourced. All of that data will be available in real time to the clinical trial folks. It could be anybody. It's not just, I don't believe the MITs and the Googles and John Hopkins, UCSF, these are all good names to have. I don't believe personally the answer will come from them. I mean, work with them, Mass General, Harvard. The airplane, right? In 1903, when the Wright brothers were screwing around on their bicycle shop, there were big academic universities, aerodynamics, mechanical engineering. People knew a lot more than these guys did. But eventually flight started at a small bicycle shop. So our goal is there are a lot of researchers. We are in that era now, a golden era of AI, where if you have data, the value is not in the algorithms that find out why something happens or the cause and the patterns. The value is in the data. So if we bring the data available, we'll get a lot of researchers, a lot of postdocs, researchers, qualified people. I'm not saying, some witch doctors will get access to this data. Really qualified people who don't have to actually belong to these big institutions, structured institutions, to actually use this data to go find their own application. So I think we'll do that. If we do that well, we'll go from 90 trials today to over 300 trials in another 3 years. What that means is we'll have faster diagnosis, better prognosis, and we'll actually start identifying patterns if somebody improved or did not improve as they go through all this experimentation, different treatments and drugs, to see what's working, what's not working, and get that out. So today it's all competitive between these large institutions to find cures. I think we're going to change the dynamics of that. Who's the team? So it's not just me. That's my sister. So I jumped in to join her. Like I told you, she's an entrepreneur, just like I am, and both from the technology world. We both have masters in computer science, very similar backgrounds. So we're leading the way. And she's actually built a lot of bridges with all the top tier research institutions, et cetera. I've been more focused on the product and the technology side, but we both have data and AI experience. Um, and since we've hired hundreds of people in the Valley here, I'm in Silicon Valley, over the years, we've hired hundreds of people into very high tech companies. So we know smart people who can now come from the computation world into this world and help the biologists actually go faster because that's not their turf to do some of the stuff that needs to be done. A lot of the folks, we have a great volunteer team, highly dedicated. All of these people have either lost somebody through to ALS. And McFinn is one of the folks who's actually reversed ALS. So he's part of our thing. If you go to everythingals.com, this team conducts a webinar every 2 weeks. You can attend them every 2 weeks, every other Wednesday. From the top tier researchers come in, and it's very highly attended, by the way. I think this will become the premier place where anybody with ALS gets in. And we've got a large team, not just this, we've got about 20, 25 students actually, all from USC, pre-med students, medical students who are actually assisting us as well. We're actually running a clinical trial by ourselves. My sister started at IRB. She's doing a clinical trial, and nobody believed somebody with her background could do a clinical trial. And within, I think 4 months, we're doing a clinical trial, working, again, we're sending all the data to MIT and all these different institutions. And everyone is professors at the top institutions said, this is mind blowing. We've never seen it be done like this. We've never seen it be done in 3 months because it takes them years to plan and budget and recruit and all that. We're using a whole bunch of volunteers to talk to patients, get them to sign forms and collect their voice samples. And we're looking at the voice samples and sending it to AI, machine learning algorithms with all these big institutions to see if the voice has information to tell you how you're progressing with the disease as well. So anyway, so we've got some examples of a couple of things we're doing. I'm focused mostly at this point on the caring side, the providers, all of that, and phase 2, I'll turn my attention to data. Now, how do you make money? I get this question a lot. I told Jacqueline, when people say this, I usually point out, I'm not doing it for the goodness of my heart. I just want that out of the way very quickly. I think we spend billions. This is a $4 trillion healthcare economy we have in the US. KBA Group just came out with a report which shows 900 billion of that is wasted. 900 billion, right? That's the economy of large countries. So it's not like there isn't enough money. It's just misspent or gets into the system we don't want to get into. Now, with the rare diseases population, there are about 30 million people with rare diseases in the United States. And ALS is just one of them. It's a tough one, but there are a lot of these other ones. By definition, this means there's no cure for these diseases. So I think this whole model will work across the board. So if you took my model of booking patients, let's say, and the yellow things are all just assumptions. If you make those assumptions, the black numbers fall out. So if you assume that you're going to book 2,000 bookings a month at an average booking of $300, and let's say 75% of that is paid by donors, not by patients, 25% by patients. So if we charge a 5% platform fee only on the money that's paid by the donors, not by patients or insurance, then it ends up being $11.25 a booking, right? So there's some model. I'm suggesting this is not, because when I talk to NIH and all these agencies, they're worried that they can't commercialize this thing. I said, guys, I know how to commercialize this thing. That's not an issue. First, we need to prove value. And then we'll have to figure out where that money comes from, because we'll subtract out some of the inefficiencies that already exist in the marketplace. I think some of that should flow into something that's much more efficient. And so that's the story.
Wonderful. This fascinating.